Okay, hi everybody. Some of you are having difficulties with the distinction between broad medical uncertainty and narrow medical uncertainty, and also between the concept of aleatory uncertainty and epistemic uncertainty. And no wonder, these are not easy concepts to make sense of. And so I just wanted to record a short video to try to explain them a little bit better. And hopefully, this will supplement the readings in a way where you feel more confident about the concepts. So the first distinction I'll draw is between aleatory uncertainty and epistemic uncertainty. It might help to think about the root of these words. So aleatory comes from a Latin word aleator, which means gambler. And I looked this up. I think the original root is ALEA, which refers to a kind of a dice game, apparently some old Roman dice game. So the idea is that it has to do with chance, where the chance or the uncertainty is just built into the phenomenon itself. So even if you knew everything you could about this phenomenon and you studied it with no bias and you had a perfect measurement of it, there's this irreducible uncertainty that has to do with the fact that some things just aren't set in stone. Some things just aren't perfectly predictable or determinate. So you have to kind of wait until they play out, and then you can retrospectively see what happened. So somebody gave the example of the weather. Because it's inherently a statistical stochastic system where there's unpredictability built into the weather, um, even if you had a really good meteorologist who knew everything there was to know about the system, you could give a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in terms of the weather tomorrow. But until it happens, you don't know for sure because there's uncertainty until it's already happened. So that's aleatory uncertainty. It means there's uncertainty built into whatever it is that we're measuring that's can't be understood any better by simply adding more knowledge to the question. Okay, what's epistemic uncertainty? Um, Epistemology in philosophy has to do with the study of what we know. And the idea here is that this is just when we're uncertain about something because we don't have enough knowledge, or we lack certain types of information that if we got the information, our uh, epistemic uncertainty would be reduced. So one way you can sort of cure epistemic uncertainty is just by learning more about something. And then you reduce that uncertainty, assuming that what you've learned is true and that you sort of believe that true information. Now, you might actually feel that you're certain about something that is not justified. So it might be that you have a very strong belief in something, but actually it's not true what you believe. That can be a problem. But if you're aligning your beliefs with the evidence, then epistemic uncertainty about something should decrease when you learn more about it. So just to summarize, aleatory uncertainty is you can know as much as it's possible for a human to know about it with a completely flawless scientific process. And whatever uncertainty is left over because of just inherent unpredictability or chance, that's the aleatory uncertainty. And again, that goes back to this idea of an aleator or a gambler. Epistemic uncertainty is uncertainty that we have because we don't know as much about the topic as we could conceivably know. And so epistemic uncertainty is something that can be addressed by adding new information. Okay, so how does this all relate to broad and narrow medical uncertainty? The idea about narrow medical uncertainty is when we know for sure all that we can know about the effectiveness of a treatment. So we know for sure that it has, a 50% chance of working for people in the population on average. And let's say that's been very precisely measured. You do trial after trial after trial, and you always get this same 50% effectiveness. What that means is, there's still some uncertainty about who will benefit because it only benefits 50% of people. And until someone gets benefited, we don't really know whether they were going to be in that group of people who would benefit from this. So this means there's some aleatory uncertainty that's built into narrow medical uncertainty. We're uncertain about whether we should necessarily take a medication because although we can completely trust the measurement and we know that the science was done properly, and we know that there are no unpublished versions of the study, we have a precise measurement of what the effectiveness is likely to be, or what the effectiveness is on average. We just still don't know for sure whether we will benefit. So that's a narrow type of uncertainty where we've learned as much as we can about the phenomenon, but at the end of the day, we still have some uncertainty about whether I will benefit, for example. How is broad medical uncertainty different from that? Broad medical uncertainty has to do with a sort of higher level uncertainty about the quality of the science in the first place. So I might read a paper that reports 50%, let's say. So let's say it's the same paper that I was just referring to, where we have, a report of a 50% effectiveness for a given treatment. Now, if I could be 100% confident that that is an accurate measurement, then great. I'm in narrow medical uncertainty, and I just have to ask the question about, do I want to take this risk? I'm not sure if I'll benefit. It's a 50% chance of benefit. But the problem is that most of us are in this broader state of uncertainty where we don't even know if that measurement is right. Because, for example, we don't know if there were other studies that were published on this drug that were not, that were conducted on this drug that were not published because of publication bias. We don't know if the researchers possibly engaged in these so-called questionable research practices. And if they did, then it would be likely that actually that is not an accurate measurement. It's probably an inflation of the likely effect size or treatment effectiveness. And so when you look at a particular paper, if you're an expert in that area and you know the research that maybe hasn't been published on it, as well as the research that has been published on it, because maybe you know the researchers and you know that they uh, tried a version of the study and then just left it in their file drawer because they figured they couldn't get it published, then you might be able to have reasonably good confidence that whatever is the reported effect size actually is the true effect size. And then again, great, you're in narrow medical uncertainty. But most of us aren't experts in more than, possibly one or two areas of the empirical literature. And so outside of our own little narrow world of expertise, where we may still have some amount of uncertainty because we don't know what all of our colleagues are doing and we aren't entirely sure about whether questionable research practices have been used. Um, in this broader sense, when we're looking at the literature in general, uh, most of us are not going to be in a position to know um, how reliable that measurement is and how accurate that effect size report is. And so that's the broad state of medical uncertainty, where we don't know what the actual kind of irreducible aleatory uncertainty is because we're simply not sure whether the estimate itself is likely to be accurate, because that depends on publication bias, questionable research practices, and so forth. So we have good reason to know that these things exist. We know there's publication bias. We know there are questionable research practices. We have good reason to believe that those claims are true. Um, but then the implications of that for evaluating any particular area of the literature is challenging because it means we just don't really know unless we're able to, you know, decisively estimate the size of the file drawer, the sort of um, number of studies that weren't published on that topic, and so forth. So I hope that gives somewhat of a better sense of things. If there are further questions that any of you have, please let me know. I'll put here in the link a sign up sheet so you can meet with me sort of face to face over Zoom. I put one set of options for this weekend. So obviously, it's not a requirement that you should be available on a weekend. But if you'd like to meet and talk through this or any of the other ideas, I'd love to do that and also get to speak with you and just learn a little bit more about what you're all about and how you're finding the course and any other thing that you'd like to talk about. All right, I'll end this stream now.